Welcome to episode 164 of the Grip Strip podcast, the tradition unlike any other, the GSP edition of the Grip Strip podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and my co-host, the former iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman, and a scholar on the road today. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil. Of course, on the road, but always glad to be able to make it on here. Good Easter and everything. And of course, we got dirty down in Tennessee this weekend with everything that happened in NASCAR. So yeah, ready to get into it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Bristol Dirt, hopefully this is the last time they do it for the sake of society. I mean, it was just a waste. It took like 18 hours to finish that race because they threw the way they threw cautions was completely nonsensical. But yeah, Christopher Bell comes out the winner of that Bristol Dirt race, and whatchamacall, in the Xfinity race or the truck race, Joey Logano gets another victory in the trucks. So that was good for him. It was dominant for Christopher Bell. He ended up leading the last 100 laps of the race. He stayed out after stage two, he went and pitted stage one, stayed out after stage two, and essentially the vast majority of the people who did that were able to capitalize on that. So we will talk about the Cup and truck races. We'll see what's going on in regards to I'm probably going to go and give a little Masters thing because it's a reference to the Masters. The draft, we still have a couple weeks away. And NASCAR's, we're going to give our thoughts on the top 75. So the additional 25 drivers that are going to be elected as part of the list that they had from back in 1998. Tony Stewart was given his award yesterday during the pre-race from Mike Helton. And today, Kandy Kahne was one of the 25. So we're going to actually go and do a throwback to what we talked about, Josh and I, last year during the end of the season when we were trying to come up with different things to do for the show in the off season. We went over this exact thing. Who's the 25? Who are going to be the 25 guys that you would add? Josh went Cup heavy. I went with a mix of Cup and Xfinity and trucks and other and modifieds even, so, and late model drivers. So that's something that we will get into here before we get into the roundup, which is Supercross at Glendale last week, which saw Eli Tomac break his tie with James Bubba Stewart for second to become second all time alone in wins with 51. We'll preview IMSA at Long Beach, MotoGP and Moto2 and COTA. So they'll be doing the U.S. Grand Prix. World Endurance Championship is back this weekend in Portimao. And NHRA is in Las Vegas for the first of two 4-wide races this month. They'll also be running at Charlotte later this month. We'll do previews and picks of the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach and the Martinsville triple header weekend, which starts Friday with the trucks, Saturday for Xfinity, and Sunday for Cup. Josh will let us know what's going on in the world of iRacing and gaming in the sim segment, and we'll close the deal. So yeah, tradition unlike any other. Hopefully the dirt race is not a tradition anymore because it's really not great. The Bristol Food City Dirt Race or whatever saw Christopher Bell lead, as I said, the last 100 laps, score stage points, get his first win of 2023. And we'll do a rundown here. Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, Austin Dillon, Ricky Stenhouse, Richard, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Chase Briscoe, your top five, Justin Haley, Martin Truex Jr., Todd Gilliland, Kevin Harvick, and Keebler Gibbs. finished 10th. I don't know what happened. I thought he finished 11th. They said he had finished 11th initially, but I guess they moved him up to 10th and when they made the official results. So other people who scored stage points, William Byron finished 13th. Blaney scored stage points in both stages, but got cleaned out by Briscoe late. Ryan Prix had stage points in the first stage, and then him and Larson got into it, and he decided to finish the job on Larson. Eric Almirola scored stage points, but was had issues with his car and finished 31st. Kyle Busch had a broken suspension. He was running up front, the defending winner of this race, because the Hail Mary by Chase on Tyler Reddick last year didn't work. And then the winner of the first stage and the pole sitter for this race, Kyle Larson, ended up finishing 35th. The winner of the first dirt race at Bristol, Joey Logano, finished dead last. He was having issues the whole day. And Jonathan Davenport, who's the multi-time Lucas Oil late model champion, dirt champion, one of the best out there, Superman, and he struggled in the Cup car the whole weekend and finished 36th, and also came out and said that this isn't dirt racing. It's basically an exhibition, which is essentially what it is. So yeah, Christopher Bell gets that victory. Of course, a former USAC midget champion, 3-time winner of the Chili Bowl, really talented in that realm. Of course, Kyle Larson being there, the guys that are all behind him, everybody in the top 5 has some sort of dirt experience or background before they came to NASCAR. And Justin Haley has a wide array of experience in his career prior to even coming to NASCAR. So that's the first actual guy who isn't a dirt guy is Martin Truex Jr. Todd Gilliland, I picked him in one of my pools because he's won 2 truck races on dirt. He had one of his best runs of his Cup career this weekend. Harvick, of course, is another one that isn't a dirt guy, and Keebler is a pavement guy. So, I mean, Christopher Bell ended up keeping the track position there, Josh. They had 14 cautions. He was fading a lot of cautions. I mean, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cautions, and he was able to fade all that and hold Tyler Reddick off. Briscoe actually had a chance but didn't go for it, and then lost track position on ensuing restarts. Reddick tried, and then when Ross Chastain crashed with whoever else he was with there late in the race, I think Josh Berry and I forget who else there late. That was 9. Okay, so yeah, and Daniel Suarez. So those 3 guys all got into it, and Ross Chastain was stopped in 3 and 4. So they threw the yellow and basically ended the race on the green-white checkered. So yeah, Christopher Bell, a guy who was in the Final Four last year, won multiple races to get in to the Final Four, sets himself up really well to get through this next, the better part of the season to go and get ready for another playoff run at a time when the Toyotas have generally been struggling so far this year.
Yeah, of course, Chris Bell, so far this year, he's kind of been off and on. Of course, last week was blaming Ross Chastain for getting into William Byron, and now this week he wins the race, and he did a pretty good job of defending his position at the end of the dirt race. And he was able to hold the lead. He was challenged by Chase Briscoe, had him on his rear bumper there with about 20 laps to go, and then Chase lost pace with him, and then Reddick was right there with him, and then he was able to survive the last couple of cautions, and Tyler Reddick was right there ready to make a move on the last lap when Josh Berry and Ross Chastain, among others, got into it on the backstretch, and they had to throw the yellow out there. So would have been an interesting finish there for sure. But Reddick right there once again to finish, in the top 2, with the way it, happened in last year and then this year. So Obviously, 5 dirt guys, top 5, really impressive, of course, and about what you would expect, the way how everything played out in this race. So, yeah, definitely a lot that happened in this race. But we go back to what you said earlier about this race being a show, being entertainment and spectacle. Yeah, definitely really feels like that. Especially with the way the race is being done procedurally compared to a normal cup race. You got several heat races, a metric called passing points, which I'm not even going to try to even learn because it just sounded ridiculous when I was learning about it on the broadcast. Things like that. The stages in the middle of it, of course. The different things that happen to it, and just feels like a one-time, one-off event that really should be an all-star race. I think the drivers' opinions all reflect that, and even the guy that came into this race just for race on dirt, with Davenport. Obviously, you have guys like that, Larson, Bubba Wallace, all guys that have raced in dirt, in the past and have had success, all saying that this race should be a not on the schedule or not a points race. So definitely agree with that there. But yeah, it's definitely a interesting event, but I don't know if it's worth running on dirt anymore.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The non-competitive pit stops also is goofy. If you want to pit, you should be allowed to pit. It's cup. I get non-competitive pit stops when you're at, if it's a truck race, it's a race where they don't, or an Xfinity race where they're a standalone event. Non-competitive pit stops, I get that, because you're not going to have cup pit crews, or generally you're not going to have fully trained over the wall guys. However, in this race, doing that, you basically dictated the entire strategy. I can't remember offhand how many of those guys in the top 10 pitted in the first stage, but I figure the vast majority of them pitted at the first stage break and then did not pit again. And the only one that I can remember that, well, maybe there might be 2. I think I might be it because it was Reddick and Austin Dillon, I think, were 2 of the guys that pitted after the second stage. And then they ended up coming back, I think, into contention. But I also would argue that with the amount of cautions they had in the race, I mean, it was almost likely for them to do that. There was a lot of wrecking. There was a lot of cautions, inconsistencies in the calling of yellows. There would be people who spin out, literally turn around and get the car going again. They would call a yellow. Then the next time it happened, they wouldn't call a yellow. There'd be cars stopped on the racetrack. Nothing. I mean, it just seemed really farcical, totally farcical, the way they called a race. 14 cautions. It felt like there was 40 cautions. It's a 250 lap race, and they spent at least a third of it under what felt essentially, at least over a quarter of the race under yellow. And that there's 12 actual cautions and then the 2 stage breaks. So 12 cautions, and then I don't know how many laps of those were stage or non-stage cautions. Let's see. I'm just going to go. So that's 4 laps there, 4 laps. So 8 laps. So 12 for 63. So 12 for 63. So that is pretty bad. They don't, and then also you have the notion of these guys not knowing how to really self-police. And with these green-white checkers, it worked out that they ended up only having 1, thankfully. But there was a lot of unnecessary contact, and kind of, it was oggy-bodgy, as the great Calvin Fish would say. It just seemed kind of unnecessary, but whatever. I felt like that race took 3.5 hours because of all the cautions, but whatever. Only 4 leaders of the race. 3 of them basically dominated. The 5, then the 5, the 45, and the 20. Those were the 3 dominant figures. It's not surprising. For Briscoe and Austin Dillon, they were both looking for a win because they're buried in points. Ricky Stenhouse, I think that's his best finish since he won the 500. Justin Haley is deep in points because of the penalty and the way NASCAR and the appeals panel handled the penalty for Colleague, but gave points back for Hendrick. But then they decided to go and randomly take two of the Hendrick cars, a 24 and a 48, I believe, to the R&D center and penalize them for something else. NASCAR goes and makes up a rule in their rule book now where the appeals panel cannot take out a part of a penalty. They can only reduce the penalty, which is funny, which is kind of WWE-ish in that sense too. So, I mean, it's kind of like a really wasted weekend in regards to that. I hope if they're going to run dirt, like go to freaking Eldora, please. Go to whatever, Bubba Raceway Park. I don't know, whatever, Volusia County. I don't give a crap as long as it's an actual dirt track. You're not going to California next year to ACS. There's plenty of great racetracks in California you can go to that are both paved and dirt that you could go and run a race and you could stay in the market. You could go to Eldora. You can go to, Knoxville, definitely not. That's definitely not an idea. It has to be a banked racetrack. It has to have banking of some sort, and you need to have somebody who gets how to prep a track, which, of course, Tony does. The problem with the trucks, which you'll get into in a moment, is they have no horsepower, and they have these mini little tires, so it's just really dumb. At least with the Cup cars, you got, in this case, 750 now. Again, they'd be better off if they had 900 or 1,000 like they used to, and then that would have actually been a real race. You'd have actually had tires digging in. You'd have had wheel spin issues. You had Ross Chastain shifting, which I think is kind of crazy when you're having to keep the car under control and then you're shifting gears too. But yeah, there's ways to fix it, but nobody's listening to people like us, even though we've watched this sport for as long as we have and we've had a passion for it. But it is what it is. Shout out to JJ Yaley for getting a top 5 start. The first time he started in the top 5 of a Cup race since the 2007 spring race at Phoenix, which I forget. It was on Twitter, and I
think it was the fall one, or
was it the fall one? Whatever, one of them. And that top 5 was quite interesting. It involved the likes of Johnny Sauter and another random in there, and I don't know I forget who was on pole even. So that was credit to him on a weekend where Rick Ware Racing definitely has a lot more going on for them outside of the racing. Getting that deal, Austin Cindric actually started in the top 10, and he's not a dirt guy by any means. Blaney ran way better than where he finished. Prix, same way. Kyle Busch had a part failure and multiple parts failures, and that's why he ended up 32nd. He ran way better than that. Other than that, the top 3 were all top 10 starters. Briscoe started in the top 15, Gilliland as well. But then there was, 5 of the drivers were outside of the top 20. So it tells you that even with the way the racing was and what it seemed like a lack of passing up front, and because of the way Fox presents a race, you wouldn't know that there's racing going on anywhere else, which is a shame considering that Tony and Clint actually had a great interplay and balance off each other very well. They actually did a good job. It seemed like Mike Joy didn't want to be there, which, I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to be there anyway, but Clint Boyer wasn't a squawking dog for once. Okay, so got rid of all that pain and aggravation. We will now move to, gotta go and give you the Cup points as they move on to Martinsville this coming weekend. The No-Co 400, so 400 laps instead of 500. The 500 lapper will be in the fall for the cutoff race. Christopher Bell takes the points lead over Ross Chastain by 13. Kevin Harvick is third. Kyle Larson fourth, stays in fourth. Tyler Reddick gained 7 spots and is now in the top 5. He's got a 1 point lead on Kyle Busch, who's in 6th. Martin Truex gains a spot, and he's in 7th. Joey Logano loses 3 spots with his deep finish there. Brad Keselowski 9th. Ryan Blaney 10th. Bowman, Hamlin, both losing positions. Richard moves up 3 spots. William Byron, Austin Cindric, and Chris Buescher is 16th. But in terms of, none of the guys who have won a race are outside of that. So they're all in there. So that is a 16 right now. Chase Briscoe with his run last on Sunday moves up to 20th in points. He's only 20 points out of the cutoff. Austin Dillon is moved up 4 spots and is 26 points off of the cutoff. So those are 2 guys that stood out. Todd Gilliland is 23rd, moving up when you consider the issues of trying to get a ride every single race. He's been running really well recently, so credit to him. So those are some of the guys there that are in the mix. Justin Haley getting that top 5 finish now is starting to get back into the plus point category. He's 30 points out of 30th. He's going to pass Cody Ware this coming weekend anyway. But that's about all with these Cup guys for the Cup race. Let's move on to the trucks. The the Weather Guard truck race at Bristol was Joey Logano benefit. Never heard of Hang 10 Car Wash, but we definitely saw a lot of Hang 10 Car Wash this weekend because he won and beat Thor Sport, and the guy who finished second is a Thor Sport regular in Ty Majeski. William Byron running for Kyle Busch finished 3rd in the 51. Crafton 4th. Grant Enfinger 5th. Jake Garcia, the rookie with no sponsorship on his McAnally Chevy, finished 6th. Chase Briscoe running for AM Racing finished 7th. Tanner Gray 8th after starting 34th. And Caden Honeycutt, who was one of the big talking points of the race the whole entire night. And Matt DiBurrito was 10th. Rajah Caruth was just outside the top 10. So credit to him. He's starting to make moves and starting to run better. So that's something great to see for him. But, Joey Logano dominates this race, Josh. I don't really think there's a lot of cautions, of course, in this race as well. What does it amount to? 11 for 64, and there was, 150 laps, so more than a third of the race was run under yellow, and that is with 2-stage. That was 5 laps for that stage, and then, 10 laps. So 9 for 54 laps, so still over a third of the race was run under yellow. There was a lot of vehicles wrecked. Tyler Carpenter, I think, caused about 5 yellows. Christian Eckes was taken out there late. There was a lot of carnage in this race. I mean, Norm Benning actually made the race, and he actually finished on the lead lap too, which is crazy. Some of those guys, Davenport ended up driving for Spire and finishing 14th. There's other people. Some of these regulars had rough nights and got used up, like Zane Smith, Nick Sanchez, Hocevar, Ben Rhodes, and the like. Stuart Friesen got cleaned out late in the race while he was running up front most of the night. He wasn't happy. It's not just the fact that his wife couldn't make the race, but then he gets cleaned out too late, loses some good points. But Logano dominates, takes a win from a regular, and that regular, of course, was his teammate for the night. So so I know that. What are we thinking in terms of Logano doing yet another dominating performance at Bristol in a truck?
I mean, it's not really surprising, and the sponsor name kind of fits the performance, right? He went and hung 10 on the field there on Saturday night at Bristol. But interestingly enough, this race with Logano winning all 3 stages, and then all 3, including the race, and then Ty Majeski finished second in all stages. William Byron finished third in all stages. The first time since the implementation of the stage racing era have we seen a race where the top three in a stage remained unchanged throughout the entire race. So that's a interesting aspect there, of course, and shows how competitive this race actually was. At least in the Cup race, it did change and everything, but this one did not really do anything. And of course, you mentioned the amount of cautions. Well, percent of the race, according to Racing Reference, 44 laps under caution, average green flag run of 7 laps throughout the race. So it tells you how much they know how to race on the dirt here in the Truck Series. But I think you go back to what you were talking about earlier with Eldora and everything. And, the Truck Series race in Eldora was an actual event and had prestige. And there was a lot of hype behind it, a lot of, momentum behind it, at least the first couple of years that it was run. And now this Bristol Dirt race in comparison doesn't really feel the way that that race did, way back in the day when they first started doing trucks in Eldora and trucks and dirt in general. So that's one thing to think about. And overall with whether they continue with this concept or not. But yeah, that's kind of interesting there. Of course, the back half of the top 10 kind of interesting as well. The Caden Honeycutt had a top 10 finish in this race. He's been pretty good so far to start the season, but now just his first last couple weeks, first couple top 10s for him now. So he finished in 9th place, of course. De Benedetto finished in 10th. Raja Caruth almost broke into the top 10 on the dirt, so he was real close to getting a top 10 finish there. Davenport, of course, finished in 14th. So, a lot of the guys that you don't really see that often, excluding Davenport, they're really finished fairly well in this race on the dirt, compared to where maybe they normally have finished. So good aspect there. But of course, overall, the main point, dirt racing in general, I think, these cars, truck and cup, aren't really designed to do dirt racing. And so when they do it, it's, highly specialized and it looks kind of awkward. Definitely think that, it's more of a show, like you said. And if they're going to run dirt, of course, run on a real dirt track, because that's definitely where they belong. So put them back at Eldora, like you said, because that was a real event. Or come down to Florida, race here in Ocala, Bubba Raceway Park, or Volusia Speedway Park, like you said earlier, which I agree with. So yeah, definitely things there. And then on top of that, I remember Norm Benning made the field in the first, the Eldora heat race that they ever had, the elimination. He made it in, and he was the starting park back in those days. And a lot of people were happy for him. And they didn't really have any of that in this race this year, so, or any of the years that they ran at Bristol. So, another thing to point out about, the prestige and validity of the Bristol Dirt race and Bristol Dirt race weekend in general. So, we're not trying to be negative, but, of course, we got to lay it straight. And this, it's how you feel, and, it's how I feel about, this whole weekend here at Bristol.
Yeah, I mean, the trucks, we've already seen this experiment go on for way too long. It's similar to them running on road courses that are very long, like COTA. Portland, which they're now Xfinity's running, was a perfect size road course. They need to be racing at tracks that are less than probably 2.5 miles or whatever or less. And that goes for road courses as well. Like Snoroma probably is a track for trucks to be running at. Portland, Lime Rock, I don't know. Like there's different options that are shorter road courses. But dirt, unless they give the trucks like 200-300 more horsepower for dirt races, they really have to stop doing this, because they don't have enough horsepower. They look like a herd of turtles, as AJ Foyt once famously said. Like there's just a waste of time. I mean, no passing basically up front even, which Josh mentioned. When the top 3 drivers were there the whole entire night, I mean, it basically proves, Zane Smith finished 8th in both stages before he got wrecked. only 3 leaders in the race, or 4 lead changes among 3 drivers. Was it Zane Smith and Matteo Majeski, Joe? Yeah. Logano led the last nearly 100 laps of the race himself. So, I mean, that was basically it was a kind of a waste of time for everybody, but for Joey Logano, a victory, getting a new sponsor into the sport. Credit to him to go and get that victory, but it was definitely not great to watch. I'm pretty sure if you're even at the racetrack, it wasn't great to watch either. But, so it is, I guess it is what it is. People use that deal there and whatever. I think that's really all we can say. I'm just glad they're not going to be running dirt with NASCAR, at least for the rest of this year, doing us all a favor, because it's not compelling action at all, and it's not something these vehicles are meant to do.
We still have Knoxville, don't we, for trucks?
Do we? I hope not. Jesus. Let's see. Trying to look over here. No.
Okay, thank God we don't.
Because that was just a destruction derby. They're going back to the Milwaukee Mile. They're going to IRP again this year. The first race of the playoffs is going to be at Richmond at the end of July. So that'll be something there. So that first round of the playoffs is really good. Richmond, IRP, and the Milwaukee Mile. The second round will have Kansas Speedway, Bristol regular, and then Talladega. Or no, that's wrong. I'm incorrect on that, because Bristol, Talladega, Homestead is that's the whatever second round. The first round is IRP. I think that's what it is. Yeah, because okay. Yeah, that's right. So IRP is the opener. Richmond is the cutoff for that. So, I mean, they're running at Mid-Ohio, which makes some sense, but whatever. It's not really a great racetrack. I mean, I don't think there's very many racetracks that are good with the trucks the way they are these days, to be honest. Now, after Martinsville, they'll take a couple of weeks off before they run 5 consecutive weeks, essentially. A couple of Friday races in between that as well, before the schedule really turns into a cluster fuck for the truck series. Ty Majeski leads the points by 34 over Zane Smith. Zane Smith is the leader in the playoff standings, of course, with Christian Eckes and then Carson Hocevar, because he won at Texas. So then Majeski would be 4th in that case, Rhodes 5th, Crafton 6th, Enfinger 7th, Corey Heim 8th, Tanner Gray 9th, and D. Burrito is in 10th, 2 points ahead of Nick Sanchez, 3 ahead of Purdy, and 8 ahead of Stuart Friesen. So Tyler Ankrum lost some ground this past weekend, lost 4 spots. Jake Garcia to just look at somebody who's he hasn't even run every race. He's run 5 of the 6 races, and he's only 22 points out of the cutoff right now. So that's credit to him, credit to the McAnally Hilgeman team. I mean, Haley Deegan, even for as useless of a whore as she is, was 25 points out of the cutoff. I mean, she actually was worthwhile last week at Bristol Dirt, and then she was able to stay out there and not get involved in the huge wreck, and benefited from a top 10 finish at Texas the week before. So she's the worst of the ThorSport trucks by far, because all 3 ThorSport trucks are in the top 4, and then she's there. So I don't know. Maybe it's not the equipment anymore. They blamed DGR Crosley for the equipment for why she sucked. Maybe it's something else, because it was the same excuses they used for Miss Hummer too, and when she stunk up the joint and Kevin Harvick was winning and other people were winning in Stuart Haas equipment, and she was the one that couldn't. So okay, so we'll move on now, because we have some stuff to go over this past weekend, they announced started announcing the top 50 or whatever drivers, or top 75 drivers of all time. And with that, and that included Tony Stewart yesterday on the telecast with Mike Helton, Wilford Brimley, except he's like 6'8" or whatever the hell he is, coming out and giving him that. And then today was Kandy Kahne, which, all right, well, I'm going to get into that in a second. I'd be remiss if I don't go over the Masters tournament, mainly because I've been eating a taste of the Masters for basically the last few days. Pimento cheese and egg salad, good stuff. Their cookies are insanely good. The chips, they're Utz, so I mean, you can't really go wrong with Utz. But it's a really quality thing. It's definitely Masters level. I think they should go and let the patrons pick what they want in their package, and then it would be cooler, but we'll see what happens with that. Jon Rahm ends up going and getting the victory on the anniversary of Seve Ballesteros' second win there, and also his birthday. The late great Seve Ballesteros would have been 66. The last time that it landed on this day, Sergio Garcia won the green jacket. So if you're Spanish, you want to win on 4-9 you want to be playing well at Augusta during that week. But Jon Rahm ended up winning by 4 shots over Phil Mickelson, who shot the best round he shot in about 2 years, I think, since the final round of the 2021 PGA Championship. And Bruce Koepka ended up kind of blowing up on Sunday. It was a controlled burn where he just started leaking oil on Sunday morning in the third round, and then it just continued into the final round. So, but they finished 4 shots back. 3 live guys finish in the top 5. Jordan Spieth had a great final round, shot 66, ends up 5 back of Jon Rahm. But emotional thing for him, getting that second major. And you got to think now that they're going to, for the PGA Championship, he's trying to get that third leg of the Grand Slam for sure in the PGA. I forget, it was Oak Hill or something like that. That's where they're going to play. I was talking about the top 75, and Josh and I were talking about it offline. I was able to somehow or another, through my pile of everything that I got going on here, find my list. If you don't remember the top 50 drivers that were listed, I'm trying to go, highlight is NASCAR Hall of Fame. So yeah, the 50 greatest drivers as voted on back in 1998. This is alphabetical order. Bobby Allison, Davey Allison, Buck Baker, Buddy Baker, Jeff Bodine, Neil Bonnet, Red Byron, Jerry Cook, Dale Earnhardt Sr., Ralph Earnhardt, Bill Elliott, Richie Evans, Red Farmer, Tim Flock, AJ Foyt, Harry Gant, Jeff Gordon, Ray Hendrick, Jack Ingram, Ernie Irvin, Bobby Isaac, Dale Jarrett, Ned Jarrett, Junior Johnson, Alan Kowicki, Terry Labonte, Fred Lorenzen, Tiny Lund, Mark Martin, Herschel McGriff, Cotton Owens, Marvin Panch, Benny Parsons, David Pearson, Richard Petty, Lee Petty, Tim Richmond, Fireball Roberts, Ricky Rudd, Marshall Teague, Herb Thomas, Curtis Turner, Rusty Walsh, Darrell Waltrip, Joe Weatherly, Bob Wellborn, who I think was, or not, I was thinking he was the guy who made that point system. I think it was Latford. Rex White, Glenn Wood, Cale Yarborough, who's not doing very well right now. So praying for him, for all the fans, people who know this sport. He's one of the greatest ever to drive a race car, and he even owned cars for a while. And then Leroy Yarborough was the last driver. And I'm just doing rough math here. 31, 34, 36 of those 50 have been elected to the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Then you have, Why did oh, those are the next three people that I probably would have picked. Okay. And then we went over, I don't know which episode. I'm trying to find out what episode it was that we went over the Hall of Fame, or what we thought would be the next 25 drivers in the NASCAR top 75, because the NBA, of course, is in the same realm. They did the same thing. They're doing the same thing this year. So that was why we went and did it. So I'm trying to go through, trying to figure out that. But just out of curiosity, Josh, you were, because Kasey Kahne ended up being picked as one of the 25 drivers. I think that it was something where we were kind of wondering how that was really possible when he's basically had 2 good years in his career in the Cup Series. So I'm not really sure where that happens or how it happens. But what were your thoughts when you heard that Kasey Kahne was going to join his buddy Tony Stewart as one of the top 75 drivers in NASCAR of all time?
I mean, I think it was surprising, really, and I think maybe he could be deserved, and there's maybe a case that could make for him. Certainly, Brickyard 400 winner, 3-time Coke 600 winner, right, and everything like that. But obviously those are 2 of the crown jewel races. But I feel like if he were to be announced, it should have been like towards the end of the list, not right after Smoke. Certainly one of the greatest of all time, right? I don't think Kahne is on that level. I even if they announced Dale Jr. after Smoke, I would be a little shocked, because I feel like the next person after you announce Smoke is probably Jimmy, with 7 championships, and then you go from there. But I guess they decided to put Kahne in the list. I don't completely hate it, because I guess when we were talking earlier, I forgot that he'd won the Coke 600 3 times, which is, pretty good achievement. And obviously, he had a pretty successful career, when you think about it. But I just think that, he was not really that, deserving to be announced after Tony Stewart, because, obviously saw Tony Stewart get announced yesterday and was like, okay, well, that fits. And they did during the broadcast too. So, I think Tony, obviously deserves to get in, and just would have thought, they would have announced somebody like, Jimmy Johnson or Kyle Busch or Kevin Harvick or somebody like that who has like the numbers to back it up. And to me, when you say greatest of all time, right, or greatest drivers ever, you kind of go in, I guess, in order of greatness. But I wasn't around in 1998, so I don't know what order or how they did the announcements, back then. So, but I just was a little surprised that they announced Kasey Kahne that early. But again, like I said, you could make a case for him on the list, and I think if they're going to put Dale Jr. on the list, which I think he probably will be on the list, at some point, 2-time Daytona 500 winner, 26 race winner in the Cup Series and everything. Their careers are probably comparable in a lot of ways. So if Junior is more than likely going to be on the list, then Kahne probably deserved to be on the list too. But again, Tony and Dale, obviously they're friends too, but I don't think I would have wanted to see Dale Jr. be announced. He's my favorite guy and everything, but would have been just surprised to see him announced right after Tony Stewart. The same thing for Kahne. So that's really my thought on there. So interesting to hear that they announced it like that, and also just the fact that they're going by like individual announcements for these drivers instead of just announcing like a singular list and get people talking that way. Or even just like, you announce it all in one day or something like that. And then like at 6 p.m. or something, you announce, who the guy or the entire list. Right. So kind of interesting to see how they're unveiling this list. And I guess really 25 additional to the original 50 greatest drivers in NASCAR. So something you think about there. But yeah, that was kind of what I was thinking when, I saw that announcement earlier.
Yeah. I was kind of hit off guard because I was coming back from my workout, and you texted me and you essentially said, like, do you think that Casey Kane's a Hall of Famer or something along those lines? I'm like, not really. But he's like, well, he's just been added to the top 75. And I'm like, they literally put him after Tony Stewart. Okay. I completely agree that Jimmy, I get that they did it with Tony because he was there. That's fine. But if you're going to go into something like the next 25 people, I think the first person you have to probably crown is Jimmy. 83 wins, 7 championships, won every big race at least twice, probably more over his career. And now he's a car owner too, and driving partial schedule this year. So my assumption is he's going to be I think they're going to have something with him in the All-Star race, or they're trying to do it before Darlington. So I think, so I don't know where he's racing next. I think he's probably running one of these next few races here prior to they run the Darlington throwback weekend. So then they can go and give it to him. I mean, I'm just going into my list, and I just to recap, we did it on episode 144 back in November, the same episode where we covered George Russell's maiden Formula One victory in the Brazilian Grand Prix, and Lewis finished second. Basically the bright spot of the whole entire season for them. We also went over the 25 additional drivers. Josh, you went cup heavy, you said, and it makes sense in the sense of when you came into the sport, understanding of what your fandom was mostly in cup anyway, because Dale Jr. was there. And there's plenty of other people in this series and the whole time that you've been a fan, and that's valid and it makes sense. And I think this will be a very cup heavy list. I mean, the vast majority of these drivers that were on the original list are cup drivers. There's very few examples of non-cup drivers here, or not like full-time cup guys, like 1, 2, basically maybe 3 or 4 essentially. I mean, Ray Hendrick and AJ Foyt are the two clear examples. After that, and Jerry Cook and Richie Evans, so they're 4. Other than that, I can't really see anybody else that wasn't like a cup regular guy or did their best work in driving in cup itself. Rex White, yeah. I'm trying to go through this old list anyways, and yeah. So they emphasize cup drivers and or owners or whatever in that list. But ironically, when they voted the NASCAR Hall of Fame, they put Bill France Sr. and Jr. in there with them instead of making just a whole wing for that, which we've talked about on the show. The drivers I listed, it's no particular order. Of course, I put Smoke in there, not just my personal bias. You can just look at his freaking career. 3 championships and 49 wins and all that. I put Wendell Scott in because he's in the NASCAR Hall of Fame as a pioneer, African-American, having to deal with what he had to deal with, considering the crap that Darrell Wallace Jr. deals with these days. I think it's pretty similar, except now in this day and age, it's social media. There wasn't social media back then. There was just effed up people just showing up and saying horrible things and doing horrible things. But that still exists here too in this day and age. So it tells you how little progress has been made or how we're going backwards. But that's a different discussion for a different day. Ron Hornaday Jr. being the greatest Truck Series driver ever, based on his results and 51 wins and 4 championships, winning at the initial part of the Truck Series when it first came along, coming back and winning 2 more championships later in his career for Kevin Harvick. I think that's self-explanatory. He's in the NASCAR Hall of Fame as well. I just talked about Smoke. Bobby Labonte's in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. He's a Busch Series champion and he's a Cup Series champion. I think he's the only one to do that. Or it might be wrong. Oh no, Martin Truex. Yeah, Martin Truex actually became the first person, I believe, since Bobby Labonte to do that. I believe. I feel like that is the case. Or Brad. Oh, wait, Brad did it. Damn it. So now I'm screwing myself up. Clyde, Brad, Martin Truex. But Bobby Labonte was the first one. There you go. Greg Biffle had won both Busch Series and trucks, but didn't ever win the Cup Series title. Johnson, which, I mean, is self-explanatory as well. I also picked Kyle and Kurt Busch, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick. The amount of wins all those guys have. Kevin Harvick, 3 of the 4 have a championship. Denny Hamlin owns one of the biggest teams in the sport now. His podcast, he basically is he's giving us all the information you really need to know. So he's kind of blowing up the facade of what is the Daytona Beach Mafia in a lot of ways. I of course put Junebug in because his body of work across being a 2-time Xfinity champion, being a 2-time Daytona 500 winner, being the most popular driver, having to deal with what he had to deal with after his dad's passing, et cetera, and now being a great spokesman for the sport and one of the only people who is trying to keep the history in the sport. By doing that, he has so much value and meaning in outside of being a driver and being a car owner these days as well. Matt Kenseth, Tony Hirschman Jr., modified superstar, Mike Stefanik, who's in the NASCAR Hall of Fame, the late Mike Stefanik, that he's an absolute GOAT, both in the modified ranks and in what was the Busch North Series. Now it's a K&N Series. Justin Bonsignor, multiple time modified champion, standout. Jack Sprague, the 3-time Truck Series champion. He was one of the 3 guys that really were the 3 faces of the Truck Series in their initial years. Matt Crafton, that's one where people talk about the Crafton rule. One of the guys that I follow and we go and I kind of comment on some of his posts. He talked about, well, if you put Matt Crafton into the Hall of Fame, what does that mean in terms of some of the other people? Well, I put him in my 75 because he's a 3-time champion and longevity, et cetera, et cetera. You can argue that all you want, really, but I believe he is valued to Duke and Rhonda Thorson being there for a better part of 22 of his 23 years of his truck career has been at ThorSport. So Joey Logano, now he's a 2-time Cup Series champion, so it kind of makes sense on a bunch of different levels. And Brad Keselowski winning both Cup and Xfinity championships, getting them first for Roger Penske, winning all the big races, sans the Daytona 500, and now he's a car owner. Martin Truex Jr., over 30 wins, Cup Series champion, 2-time Xfinity champion, et cetera, et cetera. His home track is basically half the tracks on the schedule. He's one of the good guys, but he has won a lot of races here in recent years. Mike Skinner fits the mold of the 3. It was Ron Hornaday, Jack Sprague, and Mike Skinner. He was the original Truck Series champion. He won a bunch of races, came close to at least one more Truck Series championship. I think he was in the mix in 96 before going to Cup, and then he was in the mix again like 11 years later when he came back to trucks. I added Todd Bodine because he's a 2-time Truck Series champion, and he was an absolute beast at Daytona, driving for the Germain team, made 500 starts in NASCAR's top 3 series, and now he's been a longtime TV guy. So his meaning to the sport is there in that sense. He's won a lot of Busch Series races too and contended for Busch Series titles back in the day. Sam Ard, the legendary Xfinity driver who passed away, and he ended up getting injured and having to get out of the seat when he had won the championship. He was one of the greatest drivers in that series. So you have, when you talk about having the likes of Jack Ingram and Red Farmer, amongst others who made their name in that series, you have to add Sam Ard to that list. William Clyde Elliott II gets in. It kind of has similar feels to Dale Jr. Because now he's the most popular driver in the sport, but he is a Cup and Xfinity champion as well and has won in all 3 series. I put in Larry Phillips, who's a legend in the Winston, what was the old Winston Racing Series. I think now it's the Advanced Auto Parts. I forget what they call it now, but it's sponsored by Advanced Auto Parts. And Lane Riggs won it last year. I think Josh Berry won it a couple of years ago as well, winning the national championship for running the grassroots circuit. And then Doug Coby, the 4-time NASCAR modified champion, I added him in. So all the modified guys I had were multiple-time champions in the series, and it fits when you consider Richie Evans, Jerry Cook are both on that list, and then you have the likes of Jeff Bodine, who plied his trade in modifieds prior to becoming a Cup Series driver, and then legendarily having a rivalry with Dale Earnhardt. So that's my list. I also made honorable mentions for Frank Kimmel, Don Thompson Jr., Andrew Ranger, Scott Steckley, Iggy Katona, Randy LaJoie, Larry Pearson, and Jimmy Spencer because of their work in either ARCA, the Canadian Pinty Series, what it's called now, Xfinity, or Modifieds. The next 3 drivers that I had that could have made it in my list would have been Jeff Burton, Greg Biffle, and Carl Edwards. Now I'd venture to say those 3 guys are probably going to get in the 75 because one of them's involved in TV. One of them has somewhat of a presence still in Biffle, and he runs SRX. And then Carl Edwards has disappeared off the face of the planet, but he's won 72 total races across all 3 series, 28 in Cup, 38 in Xfinity, 1 in Xfinity Championship. I think they're probably going to add him into the list. So some of those guys that I said, modified drivers or some of the Truck Series people, they may keep off so they can put more of the Cup guys in there in that list. So that was my list from back in November. I am not adjusting it. If you like Kyle Larson, sorry. He'll be in the Sprint Car Hall of Fame. He'll be on every Dirt Racing Hall of Fame. He'll probably make the NASCAR Hall of Fame anyway, so God bless him. But he's not part of my added 25. Like Kandy Kahne, essentially, Kyle Larson's had one season where he went nuts, and that was, 2 years ago, which was a work in its own right, winning 10 races in the championship. Other than that, can you tell me a season where he might have had one other season? So he's basically Kandy Kahne, except with more driving ability, whatever. That's really what it is. Let's move forward with that. Let's get into the roundup here. This evening, Supercross was at Glendale at Chase Field this past weekend, and Eli Tomac goes and gets his 51st career Supercross victory in Glendale. So credit to him. What a great job for him to go and get that victory there and retake the points lead in the process. It was a triple. What do you call it? I think the triple, not triple threat. That's a freaking wrestling thing. But I forget what the hell they call the format. But they have the 3 races, and he had the best average finish across the 3. Eli Tomac, Chase Sexton, Justin Barcia were the podium. Cooper Webb, the former points leader, finished 4th. Ken Roczen 5th. Adam Cianciarulo 6th, Aaron Plessinger 7th, Colt Nichols 8th, Dean Wilson 9th, and Jason Anderson finished in 10th. The point standings are after the race on Saturday. See Eli Tomac, as I said, take a 7-point lead over Cooper Webb. Chase Sexton is 25 points behind, so that's a full race win behind Eli Tomac. Then Roxon, Barsha, Anderson, they're all in a tight battle, 5 points separating those three, fourth through sixth. But they're well out of the championship race there. In the 250 West race, it's more of the same in terms of the winner and 450 official results. That Jet Lawrence, the Lawrence brothers have dominated the 250 class this year, and no different. Won 2 out of the 3 mains and takes the win. RJ Hampshire was second, Levi Kitchen third, Pierce Brown fourth, Enzo Lopes rounds out the top 5. Derek Kelly, Mitchell Oldenburg, Max Voland, Robbie Wagaman, and Carson Mumford round out the top 10. Okay, so he's in the East Coast. Okay, so I'll be going back to the East Coast this week at Atlanta Motor Speedway. So they'll do that. Jet Lawrence has a 26-point lead on RJ Hampshire, 52 on Cameron McAdoo, who's tied with Levi Kitchen. Enzo Lopes is in 5th. Oldenburg is in 6th. There's 2 points separating those 4 riders. But the East Coast Supercross will be happening again this weekend at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and then they'll be coming to East Rutherford the following week at MetLife Stadium for that race. Then they'll go to Nashville to Nissan Stadium, Denver at Mile High, and then the final race of the season in Salt Lake City. So the championship is going to end up Triple Crown. There you go. Not Triple Threat, Triple Crown. There you go. The IMSA series will be back at Long Beach this coming weekend as one of the support series for the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach. It'll be GTP and GT cars racing this weekend. 28 car field. The prototype class is the same cars as we know so far this season. The 2 Cadillacs, the 01, or 3 Cadillacs, the 01 and 2 Cadillacs. 01 from Ganassi with Bourdais and Renger van de Zande, Sebastian Bourdais, Renger van de Zande, the 2, and then Pippo Durrani and Alexander Sims, who won the 12 Hours of Sebring after Philippe Albuquerque and I think it was Felipe Nasr or Matthew Jaminet, whichever one it was, wrecked each other, and then the other Porsche got involved in it too. So yeah, the 2 Porsches, Nick Tandy, Matthew Jaminet, Matt Campbell, Felipe Nasr, the Acuras, the 10 Konica Minolta car with Ricky Taylor, Philippe Albuquerque, and the 60 Tom Blomqvist and Colin Braun. Then you have the 2 BMWs, Philip Eng and Augusto Farfus, Connor DeFilippi and Nick Yaloy, the BMW RLL cars. In GT Pro, there's only 5 entries. The Corvette with Antonio Garcia, Jordan Taylor, Klaus Bachler, and Patrick Pilet in the Pfaff Porsche, Hawksworth and Barnicoat in the Lexus, Ross Gunn, Alex Riberas in the Harder Racing Aston, and Daniel Juncadella and Jules Gounon in the WeatherTech Racing Mercedes. 15 entries in the GT Daytona category, Paul Miller Racing, Brian Sellers, Madison Snow in the BMW, Frankie Montecalvo, Aaron Telitz in the other Lexus, Vassar Sullivan, the other Harder Racing Aston, Roman DeAngelis and Marco Sorensen, Mike Skeen and Mikhail Grenier in the Korthoff Motorsports Mercedes, Russell Ward, Philip Ellis in the Windward Racing Mercedes, Sheena Monk and Catherine Legg in the Gradient Racing Acura, Brendan Uribe and Frederick Schandorf in the Inception McLaren, Alan, I can't even pronounce that name. I'm not even going to try. Bryn Jolfson, I guess. Okay. Well, that's good enough for me. Trent Hinman in the Wright Motorsports Porsche, Misha Goikberg and Laura Spinelli, Forte Racing Lamborghini, PJ Hyatt, Seb Prio and the AO Racing Porsche, then the 2 Kelly Moss Porsches, Alan Metney and Kay Van Berlo, and then Alec Goodell and Urin Bleekemolen The other Acura, Racers Edge Motorsports Acura with Ashton Harrison, Mario Farnbacher. The BMWs from Turner Motorsports, so they dropped the one. They decided to drop Bill Auberlin's car back into the GT Daytona class after running in the GT Pro category the first two races of the season. Patrick Gallagher, Robbie Foley in the 96 BMW, and then the 97 of Bill Auberlin and Chandler Hull. We'll see how that goes next week and go over the results from that deal. MotoGP will be running at Circuit of the Americas. MotoGP, Moto2, and Moto3, of course, will be at Circuit of the Americas. Coming off of the last race in Argentina, Marco Bezzecchi gets his maiden victory for his first victory, and then first victory for VR46 in the main category in MotoGP. Johan Zarco and Alex Marquez make a Ducati sweep of the podium. Franco Morbidelli gets his best finish in forever on the Monster Energy Yamaha, and Jorge Martin was in the top five there. So 4 Ducatis in the top 5. Championship standings going into COTA. Bezzecchi leads the defending world champion Pecco Bagnaia by 9 points. Johan Zarco is in 3rd, Marquez 4th, Maverick Vinales in 5th. So 4 Ducatis. The best non-Ducati is Vinales, who is 18 points behind Bezzecchi. Jack Miller's 6th, Torrey Martin 7th, Brad Binder 8th, and then the 2 Yamaha riders, Morbidelli and Quartararo, rounding out the top 10. In Moto2, the last race in Moto2 in Argentina saw Tony Arbolino get the victory over Alonso Lopez and Jake Dixon. Going into the American riders, Joe Roberts ended up getting 2 points, finishing in 14th. Sean Dillon Kelly ended up falling out early in the race, unfortunately. So that was tough for him. Hopefully he can go and have a good run this coming weekend at COTA. Arbolino's the points leader by 8 points over Aaron Canet. Pedro Acosta is in 3rd and 12 points behind. Jake Dixon 4th, Philippe Salic in 5th. Trying to go through here, see the points. Joe Roberts right now is in 17th in points with 4, tied with 2 other riders. And there's a bunch of guys that haven't scored points so far this year. I guess the American Racing, his teammate has scored points, it looks like, unless I'm mistaken, but because he does have a teammate, Sean Dillon Kelly. But I guess he hasn't. Sean Dillon Kelly and Rory Skinner. Yeah, neither of them have scored points, so there you go. At least they're consistent. And the Mandalika SAG team is also sucking, so there you go. And the forward team. So 3 teams that are pretty terrible, and they're all down there. All right. We'll go and move forward with WEC at Portimao this coming weekend. Their second race of the season. They ran at Sebring, the 1,000 kilometers at Sebring, which saw Toyota do what they usually do, dominate and win. But this time they'll be in Portimao. The participants in the race, the Cadillac number 2 from Ganassi will have Earl Bamber, Alex Lynn, Richard Westbrook. The Floyd Van Wall number 4, which had a lot of issues, Tom Dillman, Esteban Guerrieri, and Jacques Villeneuve. The Porsche number 5 with Dane Cameron, Michael Christensen, and Fred Makowiecki. The second Porsche, which will have Kevin Estra, Andre Lauderer, and Lawrence Vantor. The Toyotas, the number 7, Mike Conway, Kamui Kobayashi, and Jose Maria Lopez. Of course, Kobayashi is the team principal as well. Number 8 of Sebastian Buemi, Brendan Hartley, and Ryo Hirakawa. The Prema Racing team is number 9, Juan Manuel Correa, Bent Viscal, Ugran, number 9. The 10 is, Gabriel Aubry. It's one guy I know on that team. The 22, Philip Hansen, Ben Hanley for United Autosport, and Josh Pearson, Guido Vandergaard, and Oliver Jarvis in the 23. The Jodas 28 car, David Heinemeier Hansen, Pietro Fittipaldi and Oliver Rasmussen. The WRT, Sean Galale, Ferdinand Habsburg, and Robin Freins. Is that Antonio Felix da Costa? It kind of looks like him, but whatever. The Alpine team, which has Negrão, Memo Rojas, and Ollie Caldwell, Mathieu Vaxivière, and those are 35, 36, Vaxivière, Julian Canal, and Charles Milesi there. The other WRT, Rui Andrade, Robert Kubica, and Louis Delatraz. The Hertz Team Jota Sport. Oh, no, that's Antonio Felix da Costa. Yaffe, whatever. David Beckman. They're going to be moving up to the hypercar category later this season. And then Dorian Pien, the Iron, whatever, the Iron Lynx or whatever the driver, Mirko Bartolotti and Danny Kvyat in the 63 for Prema rounds out that field. And GTM, AF Corsa, don't even know any of those people. So I'm going to Michael Dinan and Charlie Eastwood both are in the Aston number 25. The Corvette with Ben Keating, Verone, and Nicky Katzberg. The Ferrari 54 from AF Corsa is David Rigon. The Project One Porsche number 56, Phil Hyatt, Gunnar Jeanette. In that car, the Kessel Racing Ferrari, Daniel Serra, Scott Huffaker. The main drivers, the guy who's funding the deal, Kimura, is the other driver. Don't know any of the people in the... Oh, it's the Iron Dames. My fault. The Iron Dames driver, and then the Iron Lynx team in the Porsche. Don't know any of those people. The Dempsey Proton, Julian Andlauer, Peterson, and Christian Reed in the number 77. Then you have Richard Mill, AF Corsa, Wadu, Luis Perez Kompanek in the 83 Ferrari. The Iron Dames car of Sarah Bovey, Michelle Gatting, and Rahel Frey, 85 Porsche. Then don't know who is anybody in that car. Ryan Hardwick, Zachary Robichon, and Harry Tinknell in the 88 Proton competition, 80 in Porsche. Northwest AMR, Paul Dallana, Jeffries, and Nicky Team, who has one of the best mullets out there. And then the Japanese run Aston Martin D Station Racing, Fuji, Hoshino, and Stevenson. Don't know any of those people. So that's the field for Portimao. We'll give you the results. More than likely, Toyota's going to win anyway. Last but not least is NHRA in Las Vegas for the first of two 4-wide events of the season. I want to go and see if they put up the entry list for the 4-wide nationals. Doesn't look like it, so that's not good. TV schedule, event lodging, event info, event tickets. That's not what I was looking for. So we'll just go over the standings. Top 5 in Top Fuel right now. Justin Ashley with a 45-point lead on Steve Torrens, 55 on Mike Salinas. Brittany Force, the defending world champion, in 4th, and Austin Prock, her teammate, is in 5th. Leah Pruitt is in 6th in the TSR Dodge Power Brokers Top Fuel car. Right now, Tony Schumacher is on the 10th spot, the bump spot. There's 2 other drivers, Milliken and Hart, I think, that have run every race this year, so they would also be eligible for the playoff. Matt Hagan in the TSR Dodge Power Brokers Charger SRT Hellcat is the points leader over Ron Capps, who's running his Napa Toyota. The battle they had last year, now they're continuing it this year. Alexis DeJoria is 3rd. Capps and Hagan, 26 points. Hagan to DeJoria, 64. Robert Height, 71 points back. Bob Tasca, 74, rounding out the top 5. Chad Green, J.R. Todd, Wilkerson, Haddock, Blake Alexander on the bump spot. John Force right now is 13th in points, so pretty brutal for him. There's 14 drivers, I think, that have made every race this year and run the majority of the qualifyings and all that very close battle in Pro Stock. Dallas Glenn, the winner of the last race at Pomona. 5-point lead on both Matt Hartford and Camry Caruso. So the 3 winners so far this year. Troy Coughlin, I think, won at Gainesville. Who's in 4th. Bo Butner's in 5th. Stanfield, Anderson, Koretsky, Mason McGay, and Erica Enders actually is 107 points back in 10th. 4 other drivers outside, I think maybe 5 actually, that have made the majority of runs. So we'll see how that's going. In Pro Stock Motorcycle, Gage Herrera, the rider for Vance and Hines, Suzuki won in his first start for the Vance and Hines team. Angie Smith second, Chase Van Sant, Gianna Evaristo, and Matt Smith. Eddie Krawick, Ryan Ayler, Joey Gladstone, Steve Johnson, and Chip Ellis running out the top 10. I think they've only run 1 race, so that's why the points are so close. Josh, it's time to bring you back in. It's the Grand Prix of Long Beach this coming weekend, one of the classic events, one of the longest running street course races in the world. Been an IndyCar staple after Formula One decided to leave, and for whatever reason, but yeah, they ended up leaving, and it was IndyCar's gain, first kart, and then starting in 2009, what was the IZOD IndyCar series, or whatever the hell they were calling it. I think it was the IndyCar series by that point. Recent winners: Newgarden, Herta, Rossi, 2 years in a row, 18 and 19. James Hinchcliffe, now a TV guy. Simon Pagenaud, Dixon, going back a ways there. So going back to 15, Dixon, I think, Dixon has only won the race once. Wow, I'm surprised. Of course, going way back when Al Unser Jr. was the king of the beach, winning there 6 times, got wrecked for possible. He had 3 years in a row or 4 years in a row, and he got knocked out by his teammate Danny Sullivan for 5 in a row. And then Tracy won his first IndyCar race there in 93. Al Jr. then won another 2 years in a row in 94 and 95. Michael Andretti won his first race there and his next to last race of his career there as well. So just going back into history, Mario Andretti was the first winner of the IndyCar race there, and he also won the Formula 5000 event. That was the first ever event held on the streets of Long Beach. Mike Conway, the Toyota driver in WEC, is a 2-time winner of the Grand Prix of Long Beach. So interesting. So we have, the field is going to be the 27 cars that are the regulars. Looks like Juncos Hollander actually is moving up the board. I guess it's based on the point standings or something, or the last race result, or it was qualifying, or I think, it must be qualifying. They determine the pit road assignments based on qualifying. Okay. So there you go. What are you thinking, Josh, in regards to who you think is going to contend and who's going to win this weekend, and somebody that you might believe is a wild card choice to win or contend this coming weekend at Long Beach?
Yeah, of course, the Long Beach Grand Prix, IndyCar's most signature race outside the Indy 500. It's been an interesting race, street race, over the history of the, series and everything. But this year, I think, Pato O'Ward, he's finished second both times so far this season. And, I think this race last year was kind of where things began to turn around and stabilize for Pato O'Ward's season last year. And I think he finally picks up his first win of the year at Long Beach here, pick up his first win of the year for McLaren, and should be an interesting one. But Joseph Newgarden also could be a threat in this one. And I think Rossi could be a threat in this race. He was really good last year, making moves and everything throughout the race, even though he only finished 8th. I think Romain Grosjean will be a good threat. Of course, was up there running for the win with Scotty McLaughlin at the beginning of the year at St. Petersburg. So that's something to think about there too. I think Colton Herta, also previous winner of this race, of course, ran well before running into issues at St. Petersburg. So yeah, a lot of good guys to pick here, but I'm going to go with Pato O'Ward. I just think he's finished second enough times that it's going to happen. I think this one's the one that it happens at. As far as a wild card in this race, let's see, I'm looking back at St. Petersburg and how that race played out, and I'm going to go with Augustin Campanino. I think he's been a really good pick. As far as a wild card, he's finished very solid 12th at St. Pete, and then 12th again at Texas. So let's see if he can get a better result than 12th. So far, good result to start for the year. Junco's very small team, compared to the big boys in IndyCar. So let's see if he can, hang around there and get a good result on really tough racetrack. The Long Beach Grand Prix, of course, very rough all the way around. And there's a lot of tight corners, throughout the racetrack. You've got the carousel where the flowers are. That's very tight corner right there. Shoreline Drive, of course, a lot of high speed for braking zone, going into that chicane. So, and then of course the last corner is a very, very tight corner where you can have a lot of mishaps. Of course, we saw that happen to Pato O'Ward back in 2021, the last race of the year, where he had a chance to win the championship and got spun out early on in that corner on the beginning of the race. So a lot of things can happen in this racetrack, and certainly think it's going to be an entertaining one. Of course, we've already seen two really good races so far this year. Let's get another one. Let's go 3 for 3. Third time's a charm. Three good things come in threes. So let's see if we can get a good one here this weekend. But yeah, that's who I'll go with, Pato O'Ward and Augustine Campanino.
All right, both good picks. Of course, Pato's been really consistent to start the year, and he's trying to finally get that championship, and they've made a lot of changes at McLaren to make that happen. He's their lead dog in that sense. And Augustin Canapino, the Argentinian driver, the rookie, a long-time touring car champion in Argentina, coming to IndyCar. The Juncos Hollander team has been the biggest surprise, I think, in the series and early on, with Callum Ilott contending top 10 finishes, really being good on two different types of racetracks, and Canapino just keeping his nose clean, just being smart, getting experience. It's a really good story to see those guys doing so well. For me, I'm going to go with, and it's going to make me throw up, but I'm going to go with Winch Power. He's a two-time winner in the IndyCar series. He's a three-time winner if we count his win in 2000. Yeah, or no, so he is there you go. He is a two-time winner, and they counted what was essentially the last ever kart race as one of those. So he's finished second, twice since then. His last win in 2012. He's finished in the top 10, 4, 5, 6 times since his last win there, and 11 times out of his 14 starts at the track, he has finished in the top 10. So pretty solid choice, I would say, in terms of what I would call a main pick. My wild card selection, I mean, you got 20, we have way more than, you have 29 drivers right now, but not all of them are racing every race. My wild card pick, kind of intriguing, to be fair. There's some options, really good options, actually. I'm going to go with what Josh was talking about, based on how good Romain Grosjean was at St. Petersburg. It's a similar, there's a lot of similarities, there's a lot of differences, but I think Romain Grosjean has shown an aptitude on these street circuits. Andretti Autosport was really fast at St. Pete. They usually put a lot of effort in trying to be good at Long Beach. 3 of the last 4 winners of the, or 3 of the last 5 winners of the Long Beach Grand Prix have been Andretti Autosport cars. So 3 of the last 4 years that they've run there has been Andretti Autosport. And then you had Hinch driving for what is now the McLaren team. So those are my choices. We'll see what happens with that next week on episode 165 of the Grip Strip podcast. And okay, let's get into the Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup at Martinsville. Going to be interesting event there. Trucks will be running at night on Friday, so it'll be balls cold probably. You'll have Xfinity, I think, running in the afternoon on Saturday afternoon. Just going to confirm that. They're going to run at night as well. Okay, so they'll be running at night, and then Cup will be running in the afternoon. Their usual mid-afternoon start, which is stupid. For the Truck Series, the Long John Silver's 200 has 38 drivers for 36 spots. I wonder if they're going to run 2 of those start and park pieces of shit for G2G, and the answer is no. They'll only run 1 for some guy named Memphis Villarreal, and they're locked into the race, so that's for whatever that's worth. Justin Carroll trying to make his first truck start in the number 90, his own team with his dad. Connor Jones making his first start of, I don't know, they announced it a while back that he's going to be running a bunch of races, so he'll be running the number 66 truck. Lawless Allen's missed 2 races so far this year, so he's looking to actually make a show. Steven Malazzi, wherever the fuck he is, he's going to be driving the 34. The driver for the 30, I think they announced it. They actually said who's going to be driving the 30 truck this weekend. Jonathan Schaefer, whoever he is, will be driving the 30 truck and go through the rest of these guys. Oh, Brad Perez, look at that. Brad Perez will be in the number 20 for Young's Motorsports. Rayum not driving for himself. He's driving for AM Racing. Well, he has 2 other drivers driving for him. Then you have, I'm trying to go through the rest of these guys. And yeah, William Sawalich is going to be in the number 1 Tricon Toyota. Otherwise, it's the usual suspects there. In terms of Cup regulars, it's Kyle Busch and Ross Chastain out there this coming week for the Truck Series. I'm taking first pick after Josh had the Indy cars, and I'll pick Kyle Busch. Why not? It's pretty easy. When Kyle Busch is in a truck race, it's hard not to pick him, and he's 1 for 1 this year anyway. That'll be my pick for the winner. In terms of a wild card selection, there's a few options, to be fair. Because it is a short track, likely a lot of carnage is going to take place as well, since drivers don't seem to have any respect for each other. I'm going to pick Raja Caruth as my wild card. He's making a lot of progress. Josh mentioned it earlier in the show when we were going over the truck race at Bristol. They've just not had a lot of luck, but Raja can drive. The GMS vehicles are very good. Proven by Grant Infinger, of course. So I think Raja Caruth would make a lot of sense at a track where Wendell Scott vibes have worked very well for Darrell Walsh Jr., one of his better racetracks. I think Raja, who's very experienced on the short tracks, can go and possibly pull out a top 10 finish there. Josh, how about you? Who are you looking at for the trucks at Martinsville?
Well, if you're going to go with one Cup guy, I'm going to go with the other, and I'm going to go with Ross Chastain, as Mike Davis once said on the Dale Jr. downloads. So go with him winning, and go with well, you picked Raja, and I was going to pick Raja, but I'll go with Caden Honeycutt. Of course, had a top 10 last week at Bristol Motor Speedway. So let's go with getting another top 10 here this weekend at Martinsville.
Yeah, Caden Honeycutt is doing really well here. Best that Roper truck has looked like, even with Roper driving it. I think he was really good on the super speedways, and I don't know, because of the sponsorship or what they got going on there, but this Caden Honeycutt is showing a lot of skill and talent in behind the wheel of that vehicle. Of course, getting Bruce Cook, a very experienced crew chief, over into that organization's a big piece to that, I would think, as well. A solid choices there. We hedge with the Cup guys, and we take our chances with two of the young guns in this series that kind of drive with a level head compared to some of these other people that drive in these series. Call 811.com to 50 at Martinsville, 40 for 38 spots. Caden Honeycutt is actually going to be driving for what's his name? Mike Harmon's team in the number 74. Timmy Hill will be back in the number 66 MBM car this weekend. We got, LeBay is in the 91. Kyle Weatherman trying to make his first start for the 96 team. They failed to qualify at Richmond. Kyle Siegel will be in the 28. Gase and Emmerling are running for their own team. Go through some of these other people. Leland Honeyman, who ran at Phoenix earlier this year and I think ran over a couple people. He's in the 45. Ryan Ellis he's running the majority of races in that 43. Joe Graff Jr. is in the 38. Connor Mosak is in the 24 again. Ryan Truex in the 19. Go through. Derek Kraus is back in the 10 car for Colleague. Gray Galding will be driving he's the full-time guy. Stephen Parsons is actually driving the 07 for SS Greenlight. So decent opportunity there. And that's about it. So Josh, you get to go first here for your choices at Martinsville for the Xfinity Series.
Yeah, I think my winner here is going to be Josh Berry. Of course, picked up his first win at Martinsville in the Xfinity Series. Has won there many times before in the late models, so he knows how to get around this joint, and I think he can pull off the win. He's had a lot of good runs here so far in Xfinity, but just hasn't closed out the deal yet to convert that into a win. Of course, ran third a couple weeks ago in Richmond and everything, so just hasn't had a win. But
this year, you mean?
Yeah,
because he has one. You said at Martinsville.
Yeah, this year,
Yep.
So get his first win because he already has a win at Martinsville, but first win this year. But so go with him as the pick for the win, and then wild card pick. We'll go with Kaz Grala. Of course, ran pretty well over at Richmond a few weeks ago. So let's see if he can repeat that once again, which I think is very doable, especially in the series and especially at Martinsville. He can come out with a pretty good finish in this at this track.
Yeah, two solid picks. Grala, of course, having experience from the trucks there and also some experience in the Xfinity at that racetrack. So solid pick there for sure. And also with picking Josh Berry, I think, and he won his first race there with Taylor Moyer as his crew chief. So they're back together. So that makes a lot of sense. My choice for the winner here, I'm going to go with John Hunter Nemechek because he has a lot of experience, of course, not just plenty of truck races there, but he's run Cup there and done the Xfinity Series too. So he's got a lot of experience at Martinsville. Joe Gibbs Racing has done a great job in the Xfinity Series at Martinsville over the years, since they put 2 races there. So John Hunter Nemechek is my pick. for the winner. In terms of a wild card selection, and I'm going to end up picking Parker Retzlaff. I had a feeling that I was going to pick Paperboy in that spot, and it was confirmed. JHN to win, Parker Retzlaff wild card opportunity race. He's very good on the under 1.5 mile racetracks. That Jordan Anderson team has been pretty solid at times this year. So opportunity for him to get a solid run at a track where I think he's spent plenty of time on, especially in iRacing. There was also, Sam Mayer's got 2 top 5s and 3 top 10s. So you talk about JRM. It may not be shocking if Sam Mayer gets his first career Xfinity win this coming weekend at Martinsville. Him and Keebler Gibbs were running over each other late in the race last spring. And then, of course, Keebler Gibbs ran over his teammate, who's now Sam Mayer and Josh Berry's teammate, Buckshot Jones, to win the race, the cutoff race, even though he didn't need to. Now, the last but not least is the Cup Series 36 for 36, NOCO 400 at Martinsville. There's no announcement as to who's going to be in the 51 car as of now. Of course, it's not going to be Cody Ware because of his indefinite suspension. So there's a lot to look at in regards to that. I'll go first in terms of Cup. I'm going to pick Joey Logano. He has a bounce back victory. He's won there. In the last 10 races, he has 1 win, but he has 4 top 5s and 9 top 10s, along with a pole, tied for the best average finish with his teammate YRB. He's definitely somebody, after losing a lot of points at Bristol, I think he wants to go out there, get a second win, solidify himself in the playoff. I don't think he's really worried about missing the playoff, but I think he wants to get that second victory of the season out of the way. Now, the wild card pick, because what do we have here? We got the first 32 drivers. 32 drivers who have run every race so far this season. So that leaves the 16, anybody behind 16th. So I'm going to pick Bubba Wallace. It's one of his best racetracks. He's won in multiple truck races there. Him and Booty, when they can figure it out, they're a really great combination. He's had some tough luck, some unfortunate incidents and stuff, but I think it's an opportunity for him to kind of get back on track. Talladega coming up, another great racetrack for him where he won his first career race. You got Kansas, et cetera, et cetera. I think this is a good time for him to kind of turn the tide and get himself in the mix after what has been a pretty slow start to the season. They're going to run Martinsville, Talladega, Kansas here in the next month itself. So, there's all those races are all opportunities for him. So those are my choices. Cup and Martinsville. So Josh, you can go and close it for who you think is going to win and wild card for the race on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm going to go with William Byron winning the race on Sunday. He's still in the early part of the season, which seems to be where he shines the best so far in Cup. Already had 2 wins in the year, and he definitely was really dominant last year, of course, in this race. So I'm going to go with William Byron winning and get his 3rd Cup win of the year, which would be a career high for him. Wild card, I'm going to go with Eric Jones. And the reason I'm going to go with Eric Jones is because it seems the Legacy Motorsports car have really Motorsport Club. They've really been off to a bad start this year, and they've just really been off. But Martinsville's somewhat good track for him. You finished top 20 both times, and did have a 14th place finish last week, or yesterday at Bristol. So let's see if they can put together some good results here and try to get their season back on track, which talked about Bubba Wallace's bad luck and everything. And Eric Jones, of course, kind of a massive disappointment to the year, after how they were last year. They were a solid threat to, be an outside spot for the chase. So yeah, I'm going to go with him as my wild card here this weekend at Martinsville.
All right, solid pick. I mean, the 43 car has been pretty good at that racetrack over the entire history of the racetrack, with Mr. The King and Bobby Hamilton. John Andretti won his last Cup race. The late John Andretti won there in the 43 car. And then Bubba also ran decent at Martinsville in that car. So Eric Jones, I think for that Legacy Motor Club, you're looking at certain tracks. I mean, last year they were way faster. I don't know what has happened this year. I mean, Gagson being there, I don't think helps, but they had Ty Dillon, who was basically even more useless as a driver, and they were able to run well. So we'll see what happens with Eric Jones. I think those are two guys, as you mentioned, Bubba and Eric Jones, that need to have a bounce back here this coming weekend leading into a race that is an opportunity. Both of them were up front late at Talladega last year. Eric Jones was leading, coming off of turn 4, I believe, of the Talladega race last year in the spring, and lost the race. So opportunity here over the next few weeks to kind of get themselves on track. Josh, it's your time again. We can continue because it's time for the sim segment. What is going on in the world of iRacing and in other gaming, other games?
Yeah, of course. This week on iRacing, I think, this week the Cup Series and Xfinity Series and Truck Series, so all 3 main NASCAR series on iRacing, all at Martinsville. So there's gonna be a lot of chances to go this week on Martinsville. Xfinity probably gonna do that one a bunch, in Cup do that one a bunch. Wonder if anybody's going to try to do the wall ride, but I wonder if iRacing's probably made the move to ban that move, and somebody will probably protest the move if somebody does try that. But we'll see if that happens. There's that, and then of course the actually the Legends, the 87 car at Daytona, so that might be pretty entertaining. And then you've also got the Gen 4 Cup car at Daytona as well. So both those cars on the old Daytona surface before the repave in 2011. So it should be interesting to watch those, of course, especially the Gen 4 car. I haven't raced that one in a plate track yet, so I'd like to see how that one handles. See if it's similar to how it was back in the mid 2000s, where handling really came into play on that type of track at Daytona. Roadside, looking at that on the road course side, got Ferrari Formula Ford at Oulton Park, so that might be interesting. Ferrari GT3 at VIR, Virginia International Raceway. You got the rookie series for Formula Fords competing at Elron Park. The Toyota Gazoo, Toyota GR Cup, the GR86s going to Oulton Park as well. So a lot of that. The MX5 also competing at Oulton Park, so that should be interesting there too. So there's a lot of those cars competing at Oulton Park this weekend. Looking at that, that's pretty much all there is this week on the road side. So a lot of the, that's really like what a lot of focus on is some of the lower level road racing series. A lot of fun, very competitive to be in, of course. And then, of course, like I mentioned, Cup and 87 Cup 2007 at Daytona 2008. And then you've got the regular NASCAR series competing at Martinsville. So gonna be a lot of chances this weekend, of course. I think there's an interesting special event here that I just saw on the news feed for iRacing. It looks like they're gonna revive the Road America 500, which was part of the IMSA championship back in the 70s. So that should be interesting.
And into the 80s as
Yeah.
well during the GTP era.
Yeah, so that should be interesting there too. Uh, we'll see. I gotta go. I guess I gotta go on the computer and see more information about that. I'm on the mobile app, but they just had that news drop there, so that might be interesting to try that out eventually, or well, try it out this year later on. So yeah, that's on iRacing this week. Of course, business trip right now, so probably we'll get to that later in the week. In addition to that, actually hopefully weather permitting, going go-karting in Bushnell, Florida. So Bushnell Motorsports Park, if you've ever heard of that, that's a pretty well-known go-kart track here in Florida. But they've got some rentals, and a couple of my friends and I are talking about going down there on Friday and doing some racing there. So should be interesting to go there, of course, weather permitting. Looks like rain may be in the forecast early morning on Friday, and we'll see how that how that holds up into the afternoon when we expect to be there, and if the track will be ready. If they, I don't know what their policy is for rain. If they do wet weather racing, but more than likely it'll probably hold off until the track's dry enough, I suppose. So we'll see how that goes there, but that should be fun. And actually, I did look on their website, and they do have their own iRacing simulator there. So it's a very, very complex setup there that they've got with the full cockpit, the 3 screens and everything. Well, 3 TVs instead of 3 monitors. So a little bit more legit setup there. And I think you can pay $10 and get 10 minutes for an iRacing session. So maybe I might pull that up and do one of the cars that I don't own currently on iRacing, and maybe a track that I don't currently own as well. So we can go on there and get money's worth for that much, or maybe go on one of the cars that I do know really well and tracks I do know really well, and go on there and impress my friends and show them how good I am at iRacing. So in addition to go-karting, so we'll go there and see, hopefully we can do that. And if not, then if it does rain on Friday, then guess maybe just do iRacing all day while we wait out the rain. Of course, here in Florida, that's how it is sometimes, rain in addition to a lot of sunshine. But that'll be later on in the weekend. Hopefully the weather stays good. But of course, when I do stream, which I probably will since it's Daytona on the 87 and 2007 side,